The following is paid advertisement and does not reflect the opinions of this station. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements. The information presented in this program is general and is not intended to be legal advice and should not be relied upon or used without consulting a lawyer to consider your specific circumstances.
Questions about law, stories from the courtroom, cases that might impact your life. It's time for Tell Me I Have a Case with Dan Grimm and Matt Glenn from Cook, Barkat, Ponder, and Wolves. Find them at cbpw-law.com. Here's Dan Grimm and Matt Glenn.
Good morning and welcome to Tell Me I Have a Case, the show where we invite you to take another look at the world of personal injury. I'm Matt Glenn alongside Dan Grimm. We're from Cook, Barkat, Ponder, and Wolves. You can find us on the web at www.cbpw-law.com or call us at 573-335-6651. Last week, we talked a little bit about the mission of our show, what we're hoping to educate you about, the knowledge we're hoping to give the listeners, and really how these cases work from beginning to end, while you deal with kind of the big three that we deal with, the liability insurance carriers, health insurance carriers, and medical providers. This week, we'd hope to have Mike Ponder here. He's a little bit under the weather, so we're going to do that next week. And instead, this week, we're going to talk about steps you need to take when you first get injured. One of the most common ways people get injured in our country are car accidents. Dan, I know you've represented a lot of people who have been in car accidents. I've been in one myself. And you kind of get a little tingly after the accident happens. You get that shot of adrenaline. You kind of go into shock. So let's talk to folks about what they should and should not do right at the scene of the accident.
Sure. I mean, the first thing is if your vehicle's still on the roadway, you want to get it off the roadway. You want to avoid its second impact. So get it off the roadway as safely and quickly as you can. And if you're already off the roadway, then you want to first start seeing if you're okay, if people in your vehicle are okay. Start assessing what's wrong with you as far as the injuries. That's the first thing you want to do. Then you want to move to call the police, call 911.
And you do that through the 911 system?
That's right. That's
okay.
right.
All right. And what do you, when you get them on the phone, what are you reporting to them?
So it's really important first to indicate where you're located, where the collision took place at. Also, you want to be full and complete as far as your injuries, your passengers' injuries. So that way they understand what is going on, who's hurt, what's injured, and where you're located.
Right. Usually after an accident, there's another car involved. Do you talk to that person as well?
Sure. And if you're able to do so, you want to go and talk to the other person, the at-fault party in this situation. You want to get information from them, their name, their insurance company, the year, make, and model of their vehicle, a contact phone number, those basic demographic information that you're going to need later on for your case.
Usually, accident happens, you make a couple of phone calls. You're also going to call, the people you care about, maybe the person you're going to see. But then an officer usually shows up. A member of the police department, could be somebody from Highway Patrol. What types of questions do people normally get from that officer? Sure.
Often the officer asks what happened. So you want to be full and complete as to how the collision took place. Secondly, they're going to often ask you, are you injured? And this is where we always talk to clients about, is that you want to be full and complete with your answers. We've talked about this for other cases where immediately your knees might have smashed into the dashboard. And your knees may be extremely painful, and that's the first thing you're thinking about is how bad your knees hurt. Or you may have broken an arm or broken a rib, which is extremely painful. But those things may heal up fairly quickly. What you didn't mention possibly is the injury and soreness to your neck and your back, and you failed to report that. If your back and neck is less sore than a broken bone, you want to be full and complete with what hurts, because it's going to be a record of what you mentioned to the police officer at the scene.
Sure. Well, and oftentimes you get that shot of adrenaline at the scene of an accident. You don't notice any injuries at all. We have a lot of clients come into our office and say that they felt fine the rest of the day. They went to bed that night and they woke up the next morning and they felt like they'd been dropped off a cliff. That happens. So you want to be as complete with the officer as you can, but you also realize you're under no pressure to get it all right there at the scene.
That's correct.
So the officer's also, the most important thing the officer will write down will be what happened, how the crash occurred, and he generates a report. Now, any citizen can get that report. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You simply go online, you can request it. It does cost money. We do that all the time for our clients. So we kind of know what we're doing there. But you get that report. It is really important to take a look at that report because they can a lot of times contain errors. If you have a client who comes in and says the police report is wrong, what do you tell them to do?
Sure. You can make an amendment to the report, contact the police station, and you can come in and make a supplemental amendment to that report.
Ever have a client who got a ticket they didn't feel like they should have gotten?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and what needs to be done there?
So if there's a ticket that they believe that they're not at fault for, we always recommend hiring an attorney and fighting that ticket. We often can do that for the individual, or they can hire an attorney that solely handles fighting tickets because you don't want to plead guilty to something that you're not at fault for.
Yeah. If you do plead guilty for it, and that becomes an admission during your lawsuit.
Correct.
You actually have to then admit that you were at least partially at fault for the accident. And, if the cop shows up and happens to believe the other driver for whatever reason, when really it's your word against theirs, that's really not just. And you definitely want to seek somebody's help in order to get out of that. What about talking to the other side? You talk to the other drivers.
So, I think it's natural for you to speak to the other drivers. The thing that we always want to be careful is that you don't want things to be taken out of context. Those go to any statement you make can be taken out of context. So you just want to be aware that what you're saying, somebody can use later against you and take it out of context.
Yeah. Now we're saying all of this. This is if you're not seriously injured in the accident.
Correct.
If an accident happens and you're seriously injured, you probably already know this. You go ahead and call 911, get an ambulance, and get yourself to the hospital where you can get better. So we're talking more about a situation, what you would call an accident with injuries that are not life-threatening, the injuries that are not as obvious to the naked eye or to a private individual. So the accident happens. You go home. Maybe you go to the hospital and get yourself checked out. A day or two goes by. Who's going to contact you first?
Typically what we see is always the at-fault party's insurance company wants to contact you, wants to talk to you, and wants to get a recorded statement from you.
Yeah. Is that a good idea?
No.
And why not?
Well, you're not required to make a statement to the at-fault party's insurance company. Just like us, if we contacted the insurance company and asked to speak to their client, they would tell us no.
Yeah.
You don't want to speak to. There's no need to speak to them. A lot of times you're still processing what's going on. And so the last thing you want to do is make a statement without you understanding fully what the extent of your injuries are or fully understand how the collision took place.
Yeah. That's a really important point, too, because typically in the days after the accident, maybe you're not feeling that great. Maybe you're just laying on the couch doing absolutely nothing. You may not know to the extent to which maybe your shoulder might be injured. For example, I had a client once whose favorite hobby was fishing. And they love to fish. They felt okay after about 2 weeks. And, they were back to walking. They were back to going to work, going through their daily life. Everything seemed fine to them. First time they went out there and tried to fish, their shoulder hurt. Now, it was a motion he did with his arm that he hadn't done since before the accident. He had no earthly idea his shoulder was hurt. Now, if he had talked to that insurance adjuster, a week after the accident and said, nah, no more pain. I'm fine. I'm perfectly okay. That insurance company is going to write that down. They're going to write that down, or they're going to record your voice saying it. And then when you get to trial and you say, my shoulder hurt in this accident, they're going to play a recording of your voice saying, no, it didn't. 2 weeks after you said you were fine. And that, that's, you touched on it. That auto insurance company, they're not on your side, right?
Right. And so, and they have a job to do, and they have a company that they represent. Insurance companies hire adjusters. They're highly trained. They go to school, and their job is to minimize the extent of what they're going to pay out for your injuries. And if they can, based on the information you provide them, possibly deny your claim altogether. And that's what they're hired to do. They're prepared when they make that call to you. They're prepared. And usually you're not fully prepared to talk to them. Again, you don't know the extent of your injuries, and you may be uncertain on the facts of how the collision took place. Maybe you're still waiting on the police report. Maybe you're waiting to talk to some eyewitnesses. So the things you say on a recorded statement, like you said, the insurance adjusters are looking to use what they can against you to either minimize the value of your claim, what they're going to pay out to you, or to deny your claim altogether.
Yeah, and that's when it really can help to have the guidance of an attorney before you talk to one of those insurance companies. You're in a situation where you're talking to somebody whose job it is to talk to you. They have done this 1,000 times. They have been trained on how to do this. This is probably your first and only accident. This is the only time you're ever going to talk to an insurance company and give a recorded statement. The best course of action is if you have any hesitation at all, you don't talk to them. You just don't talk to them. You don't have to talk to them at all. They can read the police report. They can do their liability investigation. You don't need to make their job easier.
Yeah, it's really an unequal playing field because, like you said, I mean, these adjusters have handled thousands of cases. In some cases, I mean, they've worked for this insurance company for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's an unequal playing field. Yeah. It really is. And like you said, this is your first and only case. And typically, you're not really prepared to fully answer the questions. I often say it's like almost like, you may love football and you may want to put that on a gear, but if you try to go out on the professional football playing field, you're going to get crushed. Yeah. And that's what happens here.
Yeah. They are professionals. They know what they're doing. And that really speaks to the importance of, if you're not sure you're going to get your life back the way it was, then call us. Call us or call an attorney you trust and get some guidance in it. Get somebody who's going to work for you, because the insurance carrier, I spent 15 years in-house at an insurance company, and I saw these statements and I saw how they get taken. The questions that are asked are designed to get the type of responses that you might think are benign, but actually they really hurt your case. A simple, how you feeling today? To which you might just go, I'm fine, I'm doing well. Oh, okay, well, you're doing well. I guess that must mean you're not hurt. You don't realize you've admitted it, but then when that's written down, I'm fine, I'm doing well, that looks a certain way on a piece of paper, or it sounds a certain way when that audio is played. And it can really hurt your case if 2 weeks later you go out for that fishing trip or you decide to pick up a rifle and go hunting, and you suddenly realize that you can't shoot a gun the way you used to because your arm's messed up and you didn't even know it.
Right.
And that's the real tragedy of it.
Yeah, everything you say to the insurance adjuster about how the wreck occurred, about your injuries, and even if they ask you and you tell them about any pre-existing health conditions you had, will be scrutinized and will be used against you to either minimize or deny your claim outright.
Yeah, and that really is the downside of talking to them, because if you don't yet know everything that's wrong with you, if you don't yet know what your life is going to look like 3, 4, 5 months down the road, then don't box yourself in. That's really the message. Don't box yourself in. You've been listening to Tell Me I Have a Case with Matt Glenn and Dan Grimm. We're at Cook, Barquette, Ponder & Woles, cbpw-law.com, 573-335-6651. We'll be back after a short break.